We talk about presentations as if presentation is a thing, like a research presentation. It's like music. It's not the same as an oral exam. It's not the same as a classroom lecture. They're different genres. And we need to learn to analyze the genre and meet the moment and understand the audience and meet the audience. A research presentation is not a performative task. We want to hear you. We want your voice. You know, you believe in your research. Let us hear that. If we don't hear you believe in your research, why would we believe in it? When people get more effective at presenting and they start presenting more, it's an upward spiral, right? People get more comfortable sharing their research. People get more effective at sharing their research. People share their research more, and then doors open.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Smart Dumb Ph.D. podcast, the only podcast where I say that being dumb is a competitive advantage. And today I am excited because today's guest is someone who has been working at the intersection of storytelling, human psychology, and science as well. And that is Andrew Churchill, who has coached more than 10,000 researchers, is the founder of Present Better, an educator with a distinguished teaching award, and a communication strategist who believes that research in its highest form can spark change and move people provided you know how to amplify your research voice. And that's where Andrew comes in with his expertise to teach us researchers how to amplify our voice. And so, the very first question I want to ask Andrew and get started with this episode is the story about McGill saying that Andrew Churchill should never teach at McGill again, right? That was the starting point, the post that I've been reading on LinkedIn. And that's such a vulnerable post. So, starting at that point to training 10,000 researchers and now the founder of Present Better, please share your journey. How has it been?
How did
Starting
I
from
get
McGill?
from
Yes,
there to here?
yes.
Oh boy, is he that's a doozy to get right out of the gate, eh? I love it. You know, no one is born presenting well. No one's born communicating well. And I think in many ways, and that may not quite be true, because as children, we actually probably present better than as adults. But somehow we get it stifled out of us. And I actually, as in my first professional career, which was in an exterior facing position in schools where I was constantly presenting about the school, actually, I was really good at it. And I say that not to brag, but I went from there, and then I came and I did my PhD, and I lost my confidence, which I think is so often what happens, right, in academia. And I was nervous and I was hesitant, and I was playing a role that I thought I should be playing, and just didn't work very well. And then as I kind of woke up, and luckily I had this dean of graduate studies who said, you know, nobody starts good at teaching. We learn how to teach. And I never, you know, this is him talking to me. He said, I never care about what people's first review looks like. I care whether the next one's better and the next one's better and the next one's better. He said, so your job is to make sure next year when you come back, the reviews are better. And as long as you keep getting better, you'll be great someday, because that's how great happens. And he literally said this to me in 2010 or 2011, and 4 years later, I won an Outstanding Teaching Award. And I got better at it. And I think that's, you know, that's part of what I help people do, like having been through this journey, right, of struggling and dealing with imposter syndrome. And one of the things I realized is that we talk about presentations as if presentation is a thing, like a research presentation. But it's like music. It's not, there's a difference between jazz and classical and hip hop, right? Like they're not the same genre. And I think that's one of the mistakes people make with presentations. That was a big mistake that I made. I was teaching other graduate students and I was teaching the class as if they were undergrads. My own insecurity, I wanted to project this like confidence and knowledge and distance between the two of us, meaning me and the students I was teaching, that wasn't really there. I had the expertise in a particular area, but not, I didn't teach from a place of both expertise and humility. And I think it's that combination, right, of expertise and humility that make people effective.
Okay. So talking
You want me
about
to keep going?
humility. Yeah, I'll come back to this humility thing. Talking about humility, I saw one of your present videos where you spoke about when during your PhD defense, the external asked you about a methodology and you didn't know it. And uh, that's when you spoke about humility, right? That you would follow up on the conversation. So how having that one element, humility, okay, say changes how people perceive you in presentations that are really high stakes presentation. Maybe it's a business presentation. Maybe you'll get a job because of it.
I think one of the things that happens with credibility is it gets triangulated. And we don't necessarily know if you're credible. If you're doing a presentation,
Mm-hmm.
you're speaking from a place of expertise that
Mm,
presumably other people don't have. You're
mm,
presenting to people who don't have the expertise that you're talking about or the specific knowledge that you're talking about. So we often can't test directly on what you're saying. So we have to test indirectly.
right.
And
Yeah.
and and one of the ways we do that is around the boundaries.
Mm,
Like how far are you claiming?
mm,
And when you overclaim or we ask you about something that we're actually quite knowledgeable about,
mm, mm,
and then you claim more knowledge than you actually have about
mm,
that thing that we asked, and we know that it's not, we know that, like, wait a minute, that's not right.
mm,
Everything else you just talked about
mm,
is in jeopardy.
right. Yeah.
So we jeopardize our credibility as soon as we overspeak at the edges of our knowledge.
Mm,
We we jeopardize our own credibility in ways that you don't then recover from.
mm. Right. I get it. Like you lose the trust that you had been building through your presentation if it had been going well. And all of a sudden, at the boundaries, if you claim something that somebody else is good at and you're not measuring up to the standards, then all of a sudden you're jeopardizing the whole trust that you built. Now, on that question, again, a follow-up question comes is in academia, when we are PhDs, we are most of the time in a very judgmental mindset, right, Andrew? And I think that thing to say the right answer comes from that fact that if we don't say the right answer, we're going to be judged for it. Is that the reason that sometimes we miss out on humility? What's your opinion there?
I think we're trained to have we're trained to try and answer the question. And
Right.
oftentimes the right answer to the question is I don't know.
Yeah.
The challenge is that the training we have is oral exams. And when we have an oral exam or any sort of exam, we usually don't get penalized for getting it wrong.
Hmm.
We get, so we take our best guess because we're students. So all the way through academia, all the way through mostly, definitely high school, definitely undergrad, maybe into your master's, maybe even classes you take while you're a PhD. The right thing to do is guess because you don't get penalized for a wrong answer.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly you get to a presentation or you get to a dissertation defense, and the worst thing you can possibly do is gas, because you ruin your credibility. But nobody tells us the rules have changed. And one of the things I do in the coaching work that I do is just tell people the rules have changed.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? The rules are different now. I
I
mean,
want you to, I'm
you
sorry
do
for
this
interrupting.
same work when you're coaching people, right?
Yeah,
When
yeah.
people are moving from academia to industry, the rules change. And nobody talks about rule changes.
Mm.
And once people understand that the rules are different, then they can recalibrate. And that's part of what we need to do. We need to understand that a presentation, whether it's in industry or in research, is not the same as an oral exam. It's not the same as a classroom lecture.
Mm.
They're different genres.
Mm.
And we need to learn to analyze the genre and meet the moment and understand the audience and meet the audience. And most people have never done that work before. Most people have never heard it described that way before.
Mm.
And once they start to understand these mindset shifts, then everybody's pretty smart. They're very capable of figuring it out, but they need a little bit of help to learn to ask the right questions.
Yeah, yeah. I get it. When I like, in your case it's presentation. So in my case there are a lot of things, but say for example, when I'm asking them to make resume, right? For academia it's a little different, and for industry it's a little different. So when I have to give an example, what I generally do is I tell them about the journals that they make the publications for, and they follow the journal instructions, the referencing
Right,
scheme or pattern they have. They have to change it accordingly, right? Otherwise, the submission may get rejected without any good reason, right? So you change it
right.
because you want to fit the scope, right? And that's one example I try to give them to understand that you are trying to fit the scope, show them that you fit their scope. And I believe presentation is also, that's like a starting point where you have to understand what's the scope, like what's my scope here, who are my audience. So on that note, I want to understand, uh, is it still true that the presentation skills is a very underrated skills, like, because people don't see the long term benefits of being a good presenter when they start in their career. So maybe they see that maybe it's not required for me now, maybe when I'm becoming a leader or something, maybe I'm going to work on it. Do you think that's true, or most people take it really seriously?
No, most people don't. Most people put it off.
Hmm.
I think you're exactly right. Most people say, "Oh, I'll do that when I do my dissertation defense," or "Oh,
Hmm.
I'll do that when I do my first conference talk."
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Newsflash, your first conference talk is a bad place to practice
Right. Yeah.
and get
Yeah.
better at
Yeah.
presenting.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
place to get better at presenting is in your research seminars.
Hmm.
Like, take those research seminar opportunities seriously
Hmm.
and do your best work. And
Hmm.
when you do a lab presentation on a Friday at the end of the month or on
Hmm.
a Tuesday morning lab meeting, take those presentations seriously.
Hmm.
Take that as an opportunity to try things. Take
Hmm.
that as an opportunity to see how different, if you mix up the order a little bit, or if you stand instead of sit in a chair, or you gesture a little bit, how does that change how people react?
Hmm. Hmm.
Experiment.
Hmm. Hmm.
This is
Hmm.
about this is about finding your voice,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
This isn't a research presentation is not a performative
Hmm.
task.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a task that we want to hear you. We
Hmm.
want your voice.
Hmm.
But you need time to develop your voice and practice to develop your voice, and putting it off is not the answer.
Hmm.
And not doing it is such a mistake. Not doing it, I see, I just I see the impact that it has over and over and over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you see the impact, right? When people finally do a resume the way a resume should be done. or they do a cover letter, the way a cover letter can be done that really shares a story and is impactful and moves a reader. You see how suddenly, that person's not complaining about the job market.
Right. Yeah.
Because that person is getting callbacks and that person is getting opportunities. And I see the same thing in the presentation space, where when people get more effective at presenting and they start presenting more, it's an upward spiral, right?
Absolutely.
People get more comfortable sharing their research. People get more effective at sharing their research. People share their research more, and then doors open.
Right.
The doors open. I mean, yes, is it hard to find a job? Absolutely. But is it hard to find a job for the people who are really good at communicating their value and speaking with confidence and having a presence and knowing their own story? Nope. I don't
Absolutely.
think so. I
Yes.
think those people are the ones who are marching through, and doors are opening, and they have all kinds of opportunities, and they're picking and choosing different. Is it always easy? No, but
I'm
it's.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said the truth, which is like people do consider it as an underrated skill. But I just wanted to add to your point now, because I'm working with PhDs. Couple of them do have presentation interviews, okay? And I tell them, please send the presentation in advance to me, because I know for sure that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And when they send it to me and I have a look at it, the very first thing I tell them is, I'm here to serve you and I'm not here to please you. So I'm going to be sharing things that you would not be comfortable hearing, because it's uncomfortable for me to speak as well. So I can really see that the story is not flowing, and you will be the better one to confirm this further. Being a PhD, they want to stack up their slides with every information possible, everything that they have worked on. So, Andrew, can you share one story relating to this particular trait of PhDs, if you have observed it in your work?
I could share 100.
Yeah, but
I mean,
any one or two you
this
particularly. Yes.
this also comes from a place of imposterism, right?
Mm-hmm.
It comes from a place of feeling like, and it comes from misunderstanding the genre. When we're uncertain in our own confidence,
Mm.
and we think it's an oral exam, we just put as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
We pack in as much as we can in the hopes that something
Will stick.
will be important,
Yeah.
and that people will take something from it, because that's kind of the oral exam space, right? Again, we don't get in an oral exam, we don't get penalized for saying too much.
Right. Yeah.
But in a presentation, you absolutely get penalized for saying too much.
Mm-hmm.
Because in a presentation, when you say too much, people don't understand any of it.
Right.
And the way people are able to understand is when you make some choices and you pare back, and you make some decisions about what to share and what to leave out, and you realize that the question time is the opportunity for people to ask you about things that you didn't talk about. The question time is the time for the things that you left out. And too often what happens is people pack everything in, and then the question time is because people didn't understand what you said.
Absolutely. Yep.
So the question time is, if the questions are about what you said, you probably weren't clear. The question should be about going beyond what you said, because what you said ideally was pretty clear, and people don't have a lot of questions about what you said. People have questions about, okay, let's keep talking. Let's keep talking. So you can tell a lot about the quality of a presentation by the kinds of questions that are asked.
Right. And you've been talking about this misunderstanding the genre. So, can you break it down for us? What do you mean by misunderstanding the genre? And when it comes to presentation, what are the different kinds of genre? That'll be really helpful.
Well, a job talk, for instance, very different than a conference talk,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You go to a job talk, and people are people are interviewing you to see if they want you to be their colleague.
Right.
Um, part of what's being done at a job talk is deciding whether they want to hang out with you for the next 20 years.
Hmm.
And that's not on the table at a conference.
Hmm.
At
Right.
a conference talk, it's really the research.
Hmm.
So understanding what it is that people are trying to get out of the talk is really important for understanding what to put into the talk.
Hmm.
Um, a job talk needs to have more personal story, a bit more vulnerability, a bit more disclosure, um, than a conference talk ever would. Which doesn't mean you can't have a bit of personality in your conference talk. It's just it's different, and it's there for a different reason. So I think really understanding two things: one, your audience, who's in the room,
Mm-hmm.
and the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
What are you trying to accomplish in this moment?
Hmm.
And if you don't understand the audience and the purpose, then you can have beautiful slides, and you can have a clear understanding and a clear explanation of your research. But it's kind of like a Wikipedia entry sometimes. You can have a good Wikipedia entry, but
No one's
it's
interested.
still it's still a Wikipedia
Yeah.
entry, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's very generic. And generic presentations don't meet the moment. They're
Absolutely.
designed for they're designed for every moment, right? It's like the journal article. The journal article's designed to stand the test of time.
Hmm.
The journal article is designed to speak to a variety of different people in a variety of different ways, mostly by giving all the information and letting people choose how to consume it.
Hmm.
I like to describe a journal article as a filing cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
It's really right. You have your background or introduction, then you have your methodology, and then you have your results, and then you have your discussion. And people read the title and the abstract, and then they go and they leaf
Yeah.
through and they get the information that they create a story out of it.
Right.
They find the information that they need. But your job when you do a presentation is to not to give them the filing cabinet,
Hmm.
but to give them a particular reading of the filing cabinet.
Hmm.
And that's the decision that you get to make as a presenter.
Right.
Which reading of the filing cabinet do I want to give today? And that's why a
Right.
conference talk is different than a job talk, is different than a dissertation defense,
Yes.
because each of them have different audiences and different purposes.
Hmm.
So each of them, you'll give them a different walk through the filing cabinet, and you'll highlight different things for different audiences,
Hmm.
and you'll the order will be different for different audiences. It can be the
Right.
same information,
Yeah. Order will
but it's done
differ.
in a different order with a different nuance, with a different spotlight.
Hmm.
And it's, once you realize that you have the freedom to do that,
Hmm.
it actually gets fun.
Yeah.
Once
I
you
agree.
once you
Yeah.
figure out that,
Yeah.
like, oh, I get to like give people my version of it.
Hmm.
Because a journal article, you you kind of give this objective version of it. Most journals, at least most STEM
Hmm.
fields, right?
Hmm.
You give this kind of generic objective version
Hmm.
of it.
Hmm.
Whereas the presentation, you get to give your version. You get
Hmm.
to choose.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
get to say some of the things that you weren't able to say.
Right. Yeah.
because you're there.
Yeah.
And we get to hear them because we're here. And that's the moment in time that this happens. And it only happens once. And if we do it again tomorrow with a different group in a different situation, it'll be different.
Right. Right. From your this answer, Andrew, I have a couple of words that I have picked up. One of them is vulnerability, right? Now, you get to be vulnerable in your presentations, but again, if you do it wrong, it can again jeopardize many things, right? So, can you give us an example of vulnerability done right and vulnerability gone wrong?
So you started with the story about an early class I taught that didn't go well.
Right, yes.
And Brené Brown has a good description of how, when it's okay to share things that went really wrong.
Hmm.
And she says share from scar tissue, not wound.
Mm-hmm.
When it's wound, when you're still processing it,
Hmm. Hmm.
sharing that's it's not the audience's job to help you process it.
Right. Yeah.
So when you're sharing things like that, it's, I like that analogy that she uses of this idea of, once it's scar tissue, you're good to go.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, the the vulnerability, so mostly that's not the vulnerability that we're talking about in
Yeah.
the research space. Like
Yes.
that's a very personal story, right?
Hmm.
So that's different than the typical research space vulnerability. Um, I think the typical research vulnerability isn't so much vulnerability as it is intellectual humility.
Hmm.
Um, I think vulnerability is more appropriate, like in the job talk space, yes. In the conference talk space, probably not. In the
Hmm.
keynote space,
Hmm.
probably yes.
Hmm.
The conference talk space, I would characterize more as the intellectual humility space,
Hmm.
where it's just, you can't be overclaiming.
Right. Yeah.
You can't be overclaiming. And it's different. And this is one of the things that's interesting, industry versus academia, right? That claim space is very different. If you qualify in industry at the same rate and manner and level that we qualify in academia,
Hmm.
industry will be like, well, you don't know what you're talking about.
Hmm.
Because the industry expects you to claim to the boundary,
Hmm.
whereas academia expects you to like highlight the boundary.
Hmm.
And it's important to understand these differences, right? And these different spaces. I work with this when um, I sometimes do work with researchers who are in the policy space,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
they're presenting beyond academia.
Right. Yeah.
And it's really important that they understand that the rules shift.
Hmm.
And if they qualify in the policy development or the policy influence space in the
Hmm.
same way with the same language that they would qualify within academia,
Hmm.
um, they'll be dismissed as
Hmm.
not being certain enough.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's just there's an uncertainty that there's a way that we declare and talk about uncertainty
Hmm.
that's different in different audiences in different
Hmm.
spaces.
Hmm. 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 And I think that doesn't come easily. That's again a practice. And when you start understanding your audience and the different genre in your vocabulary, as you say it, that's when you start developing that sense, right, Andrew? That, okay, this is what I can share in this group, and this is what would be relevant here.
Yeah, and I think um, it's having that. knowledge, um, and the confidence that comes from that knowledge of understanding your audience and what's the what's expected in this moment, right? And meeting the moment. And it's hard. It's not, I mean, I say it's hard. It's both hard and easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's it's hard because people don't talk about it.
Right. Yes.
Once you start talking about
It
it,
becomes easy and fun. Yeah.
it actually becomes a lot easier and fun and not so hard anymore.
Yeah.
What's hard is when people aren't talking about what the rules are. Like the rules have changed, but no one talks about the rules.
Right. Yeah.
And that's of course the problem with so much of our knowledge, right? Like so
Hmm.
much of our knowledge is tacit.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And tacit knowledge is the things that we know, but we don't know we know,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
or we don't know how we know.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And this is the work that I do when I'm lucky enough to work not only with PhD students but with their professors. So like I work with a lab, or I work with um, an institute event where the professors are also training and
Yeah.
also part of the process.
Right.
Um, what happens for the professors is a lot of the knowledge that's tacit.
Hmm.
Like I work with a lot of professors who are very good presenters,
Hmm.
but they can't actually articulate what it is that they do.
Hmm.
They're very effective,
Hmm.
but they have a hard time teaching graduate students to be effective, not because they're not effective, not because they're not good at it, but because they don't actually understand what it
Hmm.
is that they're doing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they learn really quickly,
Hmm.
um, from us hanging out and them watching me teach, or them reading some of the things that I do. Like I have these funny stories of professors who will follow me on LinkedIn and quite quickly get quite good
Yeah.
at help at and much better at helping their PhD and early career researchers
Right.
get better
Yeah.
at presenting, because suddenly they
There's a
recognize what I'm
switch that's
saying really
flipped.
quickly,
Yeah.
and just a switch flip, and they're like, oh, okay, now I got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I have these conversations with them. They're like, oh my God, all these things that you talk about, I just didn't have the language
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
before.
Hmm.
And now that they have the language of it, it's actually one of the I'm building a course right now for PIs,
Hmm.
for them to be able to bring their graduate students in.
Hmm.
I'll do some of the teaching. It's got teaching about it, but then it's got a process for the PIs to run the graduate students through, and they become the instructors, and they don't need me to teach them.
Hmm. Hmm.
They just need the process and the language.
Right. Yeah.
And with the process and the language, um, they can suddenly become much more effective and much more efficient,
Hmm.
much more consistent and much more efficient and much more effective,
Hmm.
um, in teaching graduate students how to present more effectively,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, because the system's built for them,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And it's not. Um, anyways, I won't get into it. I realize that's not the topic for,
Yeah.
for
But
today.
then I could
But
see
it's
the
a but it's a really interesting. Like I'm super excited about it. I'm just
yeah.
building it right now. I'm super excited about it because I think it has the potential to really unlock learning at a very different scale.
Exactly. Andrew, that was the point I was coming to. Right now, I see that if this works out, this can make things happen at scale because it's the uh, PIs who are getting that training, and now that's trickling down to the students. So the impact is much higher, and the scale is also much higher. Like you cannot work with everybody one to one, right? So this is how you make the impact of your work scale. So I can see the excitement in your eyes, and that's getting me excited too as well. So on that note, I'm going to circle back to one more word that you have been using as we were having this conversation, which is gestures, Andrew. So some time back, you made these gestures with your hands for the files, introduction cabinets, and it suddenly became so visual, right? And that captures your attention. So when it comes to making gestures, where do you see researchers and PhDs? How good are they on a scale of 1 to 10 when it comes to making gestures?
Um, I mean, the people who are effective presenting are at 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah.
The people who aren't are at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hmm.
And there are two things that people do wrong. One is they sit with their hands. I'm gonna actually tilt my camera. So if they're at a podium,
Hmm.
they'll sit with their hands on the podium
Okay. Yeah.
and they'll be confident, but their
Yeah.
hands will be there. And
Yeah.
their voice will be there too. Their voice won't move.
Yeah.
And then they'll get to a moment in their presentation where they suddenly get excited about something and their hands come up and their voice shifts. You could just hear my voice shift, right?
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
because they can't, and then they'll come back down and settle in and go back. And
Okay.
I've done this before. I've actually done this at an event
Hmm.
with someone sitting next to me.
Hmm.
And we had been talking about, just trying to get my camera back. We had been talking about some of the work I do and some of that. I was like, listen, I'll be able to tell you when they take their hands off the podium. I'll close my eyes. I closed my eyes.
Hmm.
So the hands came off.
Hmm.
Hands are back on the podium. Hands came off the podium. And then I opened my eyes and they were looking at me like this. Like, are you psychic or something? I'm like, no, you can just hear it in their voice.
It's the tone, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You just hear their voice.
Yeah.
So what happens is people try and be still.
Yeah.
And when your body is still, your voice is still.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when your voice is still, it's monotone.
Hmm.
And it's perfectly professional,
Hmm.
but it's monotone.
Hmm.
And it's really hard for human beings to listen to a monotone voice.
Hmm.
So the audience drifts, not because you're not professional,
Hmm.
but simply because you're monotone.
Hmm.
And so we need to be active in order for our voice to be active,
Right. Yeah.
right? And you see me even sitting here. I'm gesturing even here. A lot of times gesturing down here, but if you see my shoulders, you'll see me moving around a little bit.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm sitting in a way that I'm sitting forward in my chair and upright.
Right.
I'm not, because
Yeah.
if I sit back like this and I let my shoulders collapse and my hands come forward,
Yeah.
then my voice collapses. And I
Right.
may be excited, but you won't hear it.
Right. Yeah.
You won't, if I'm sitting like this,
Hmm.
then my my breathing becomes restricted. My voice has less depth.
Hmm.
As
Hmm.
soon as I sit up, you hear
Hmm.
the difference in the depth of the voice.
Hmm.
That depth comes from your shoulders opening and allowing the air the air in your lungs to drop lower.
Hmm.
So the air comes from the diaphragm, not from the top of the chest. Whereas when it's restricted, our chin comes down a little bit, our hands come in, our
Hmm.
shoulders come forward. Now our airways restricted. Nobody would sing like this because their voice would be flat.
Yeah.
They do
Yeah.
this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of there's a lot of physicality
Right.
that people just they get nervous, so their hands come forward and their shoulders, like you can see it in my shirt, right? The wrinkles.
Hmm. Hmm.
Whereas that,
Hmm.
the difference between this with hands together
Hmm.
and that, and I just hit my darn chair. See if I can get it to come back up. It just got
Okay.
low.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I got my chair back.
Yeah. Yeah. That was
And a
uh
little, I mean, you were talking earlier about vulnerability, right?
yeah.
Um, there's a certain vulnerability to this kind of thing, right? Like I'm no longer looking at the camera. Now I'm like looking over here and like talking about my throat and my
Right.
diaphragm.
Yeah.
And there's a certain amount of
Vulnerability. Of course. Yeah.
like I just I don't think of it as vulnerability.
Right. Yeah.
But the first time I did it, I did, I
Yes.
think.
Yes. Yes.
The
Yeah.
first time I did it, I was like, because you can't see the audience anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And they might make fun of me for it.
Yeah.
Like if I just sit here like this and I don't do anything, no one's going to make fun of me.
Hmm. True.
If I do this, then some people might.
Yeah.
but
Most of them can see
at
the
some
difference.
point you just have to say,
Hmm.
heck with it.
Hmm. 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 Right.
Um, and you believe in your research. Let us hear that.
Yeah.
Let us hear it.
Hmm.
Because if we don't hear you believe in your research,
Hmm.
why would
Why would
we?
exactly?
Why would we believe in it?
Yeah.
So this objective thing, which is like this time-honored tradition
Hmm.
that's been passed down,
Hmm.
um, it just it wasn't very smart.
Hmm.
It wasn't, the standing behind a podium in the front of a room and not and just being steady and lecturing, and it 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 wasn't actually really good teaching. It
Hmm.
was perfectly effective
Hmm.
because people were disciplined about sitting there and
Hmm.
listening,
Hmm.
but it wasn't it wasn't some pinnacle of communication moment
Hmm.
that we should revere.
Hmm. Hmm.
Just the way I think a TED Talk isn't a pinnacle of communication moment. A TED Talk's a particular genre, right?
Hmm.
Like I've been talking a bit more about um, how I think TED Talks aren't necessarily helpful for researchers anymore.
Okay.
Like
That's new to me. Yeah.
TED Talks were great. TED Talks were fantastic. I actually have a little red dot over there. So
Yeah.
when I coach TED Talks, I get people to use it.
Yeah.
Um, they were fantastic for changing what's possible
Hmm.
presenting,
Hmm.
but they're not actually. There are lots of things that are in TED Talks, like being restricted to a circle,
Hmm.
um, that aren't. That's not what researchers should do.
Hmm.
There's too much story. There's too much performance.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's
Hmm.
too much memorization,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So they're a particular genre. I love them for what they are,
Hmm.
but I don't revere them as the thing that everybody should try and do.
Hmm.
If you try and do a TED talk at a research conference,
Hmm.
it's not going to go well.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Should you be informed by some of the things that people do in TED talks that work effectively? Absolutely.
Hmm.
But that's different from trying to mimic them.
Hmm. 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 Okay, Andrew, I know we can go on, but this comes from my own workshops that I have conducted for PhDs. So I don't know if that's been your experience too. You are a PhD in education yourself, and I had been conducting workshops for PhDs from STEM domain and also from humanities and arts domain, right? And I had been conducting surveys before my workshop. The same survey I conducted in both the groups, okay? And there's a subtle difference in the survey, which shows the way the STEM PhD thinks and the way the arts or humanities PhDs think is a little different. And the difference comes uh, in the way they receive ideas. So I believe the humanities and arts PhDs are more open minded, whereas the STEM PhDs are a little bit more rigid. I don't know if that's been your experience or not. Can you share? Have you found anything like that?
Um, I think sometimes the STEM PhDs I wouldn't necessarily describe as rigid in that they're not open.
Hmm.
I mean, I have a biased sample, right? Because people volunteer to come listen to me and work with me. Not
Yeah.
always, but mostly.
Yeah.
So they're coming looking for my expertise.
Hmm.
I think sometimes the rigidity I would describe as the desire to be told what to do.
Hmm.
So the and told what to do, that doesn't sound very nice. That's not the right description.
Okay.
Um,
May I
the
just add
desire for a clear answer.
instruction? Is that a clear
Yeah,
instruction? You put it
yeah.
so right. That's exactly what I wanted to say, that there's a desire for a clear instruction, whereas humanities and arts PhDs can work with the instruction given and go beyond it. That's what has been my experience. Is that right? Yeah. So I
I
feel
think
like,
that's true.
yeah, they try
I
to
think
work in a
the
box
yeah.
sometimes.
So it's not it's not rigid in the sense that I'm going to do it my way. It's rigid
Hmm.
in the sense of give me a way to do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes I think I'm too complicated.
Okay. Yeah.
Sometimes I think I'm not directive enough.
Right.
I'm like, how do you feel about this?
Hmm. Hmm.
And they're like, just tell me how I should feel. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to tell you how you should feel. I'm like, tell me what would be effective.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what would be effective is how you feel about it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because really what we're looking for is authenticity, right?
Yes.
And not performance. And
Hmm.
when it's performance, then people's radar goes off when it's performance and they don't like it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's an interesting space because people want some simplicity, people want some clear direction, and a lot of times it's like, well, they're different genres, and they're like, well, which genre is this, and what are the rules for this genre? I'm doing a dissertation defense is a good example.
Hmm.
I'm doing a dissertation defense.
Hmm.
How do those work?
Hmm.
Well, how do dissertation defenses at your university work?
Hmm.
What do you mean? It's a dissertation defense.
Hmm. Hmm.
I said, well, sometimes they're 20 minutes long
Hmm.
with an hour of questions. Sometimes they're an hour long with an hour of questions. Sometimes the 20 minutes is closed. Sometimes the 20 minutes is open. Sometimes
Hmm.
the hour is open. Sometimes, like, there are a bunch of different ways this is done,
Hmm. Hmm. Right.
right? And sometimes, even when it's open, so here's a fundamental question that I tell people they need to go find out because it'll change how they present. Two different rules.
Hmm.
It's open. So how many people are going to come? 30, 25.
Hmm.
Only 4 or 5 are on the committee.
Hmm.
So here's the critical question. Are the 25 people who aren't on the committee, are they there to watch you talk to the committee?
Hmm.
Or for the presentation, does the committee expect that you're going to talk to the 25 people who haven't read your dissertation
Hmm.
for the presentation?
Hmm.
And they're going to grade you on your ability to talk to people who haven't read the dissertation.
Hmm.
Because those are two very
Very
different
different.
presentations. Very,
Absolutely.
very different.
Yes.
One group are experts who have already read the material, and you're continuing to talk to them in depth
Right.
and detail and complexity. Another group, brand new, may not even have a science background, and you're
Right.
there to share with them 4 years of your work.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand which you're trying to do, you got a 50% failure rate before you even start.
Absolutely. Yes. That's
And it's just because you didn't ask the right question. And
yes.
people don't, and everybody is inside their own heads and they don't think about this. Even a lot of times I talk to professors about this and they're like, oh, oh yeah, this is how we do it here. I just thought everybody knew that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's that tacit knowledge
Hmm.
piece, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
No, no,
Hmm.
no. The presentation is supposed to be for the public audience.
Hmm.
And then it's followed by the Q&A,
Hmm.
which is the committee meeting asking questions, and the public audience gets to watch that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or someone else says, no, 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 the public audience is just there. They're invited because they're allowed to be witness, but it's not to them at all.
Hmm.
Both of these things exist.
Hmm.
You need to know which one.
Right. Right. So, I mean, these are such questions which, if we ask ourselves, the whole course of how we think about the presentation changes. And if we can pass on to the next presenter, because you spoke about thesis defense, then it becomes much clearer in their head as well that, okay, how do I approach this, right? And it's approaching the problem with a place of intention and not from a place of, impressing someone with what I have done, but with the intention that how best can I make sure that the information that I'm about to share is relevant to them and they can make sense out of it, right? So those questions are such beautiful, beautiful questions, Andrew. Uh, on that note, I want to ask you two more questions. Do we have the time for that?
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Okay.
good.
Okay.
Oh, we got balloons coming.
I don't know. I did this. That's the reason the balloons came in.
See if
I
the
believe.
balloons come.
Yeah, this is something automatic that's happening. So, number one is, how do you see the importance of listening skills while presenting?
Um, there's a great way to think about this. We hear with our eyes.
Right. Yeah.
We listen with our eyes, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's really important.
Hmm.
But it's only important if your presentation if you've built in flexibility.
Hmm.
If your presentation is just a railroad, like there's one track and
Hmm.
you need to go the right speed and you practice. I mean, honestly, TED Talks are a little like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
TED Talks really, TED Talks have gotten to a point where they're often not about the people in the room.
Hmm.
They're about the camera.
Hmm.
They're about the people watching it
Hmm.
later.
Hmm.
And there's a live audience, not because you're presenting to the live audience, but because the live audience is watching you present to the camera.
Hmm.
It's kind of crazy.
Hmm.
But this is part of where the TED space, I think, has evolved to, where people are doing really high stakes talks. It's not the room that they care about; it's the camera.
Hmm.
Um, but the room, you should be paying attention. The pivot I made in my PhD defense when
Hmm.
I started to answer a question that I really didn't know the answer to.
Hmm.
Um, the cue for me was looking at my supervisor.
Right. You shared that in the video. Yeah.
He was looking at me, and there was no, like, he's usually a go-lucky, happy, smiley guy,
Hmm.
and he wasn't smiling, and I was like, okay, I'm doing something wrong. And it took me
Yeah.
a little bit to process. And then I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I know what I'm doing wrong. This isn't something I have the answer to. I'm supposed to admit that.
Right. Yeah.
And he didn't say anything to me, but I
Right.
heard him. I
Yeah.
heard him.
You saw him and heard him.
I heard him with my eyes, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, and presentations are kind of a dance where your eyes allow you to listen to the room, and you can see when attention drifts, and you can see when there's a lull and you need to shift. But you need to get to a place of real mastery with your content for that. you know that's the difference between 7, 8, 9, and 10. The way to get to 7 or 8 is to pre-listen to your audience.
Hmm.
The way to get to 7 or 8 is to be able to anticipate how your audience will feel and will react and what questions they will have and pre-script that. And that's where, there's certain patterns for how long and how complex and these are very predictable once you know what you're looking for and you do it a bunch. So you can pre-script at the 7, 8 level. And a lot of my work is focused on pre-scripting at the 7, 8 level because people are operating at a 3, 4, 5 level.
Hmm.
And then sometimes I'm working with people who are already at a 7 or 8 level, and that's tons of fun
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
then we get to play at the 9, 10 level.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where that's where being light on your feet and reacting to the audience and
Yeah.
having some flexibility and some moment and something like that's all. But that's the top 10, 15% of talks.
Right. Yeah.
That's at an elite level
Hmm.
um, that people don't need to be able to do that. It
Hmm.
would be nice if they could, but most people don't need to be able to do that. They need to
Hmm.
get to a 7 or 8 level, which is
Hmm.
just the ability to deliver a solid talk that people will pay attention to and people will understand.
Hmm. Okay. And so here goes my last question. Okay. If you could just let's assume that presentation skills has been made mandatory for every PhD throughout the world, right? So, what are the three things you would definitely teach uh, once it's mandated for every PhD?
Um, to start with content,
Okay.
like I think too often when people talk about teaching presentation skills, they suddenly
Hmm.
get into voice and body language, and that's putting the cart before the horse.
Hmm.
It's got to start with content because
Hmm.
the content's not a journal article.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so one is make sure people start with content.
Hmm.
Um, and this is either 2 or 1A.
Hmm.
When you build content,
Hmm.
you need to start short and build longer, not start long and build shorter.
Okay.
A 20-minute talk cut to 15, cut to 12, given in 10 is never a good talk.
Okay.
A good 10-minute talk starts with a 2 or 3 minute talk that's
Hmm.
added to.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you have to start with a short talk and add to it.
Hmm.
The short talk is the foundation.
Hmm.
I'm going to say that's 1 and 2
Hmm.
because I think content's important enough that it's more than 2/3.
Hmm.
And then I'm going to jam delivery into 3 and have it
Okay.
be 3A, B, and C.
Yeah.
3A is simplify your darn slides.
Hmm.
3B is be more dynamic
Hmm.
in your body language.
Hmm.
And 3C is allow us to hear a little bit about how you feel. So 3 is
Ah,
all about delivery.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I loved.
but 1 and 2 are about content, 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 and
Hmm.
content.
Hmm. 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 I love the second part. That's so not spoken about, the short talk to the long talk, the transition from being the shorter one to the longer one, and not the reverse. That's something I'm going to take away and start using. And of course, feelings is one part that's so missing in PhDs. I think we need another session, a whole session to cover this part. We will not be able to. And I have so many more. I have like made a one-page note, and I have so many more questions that I can go on with. But it's in the interest of time that I'll have to end this podcast over here. Thank you so much. I think we had a very deep conversation, and I'd love to have you once again, Andrew.
One of the reasons that we can have this conversation and the depth of this conversation is that while again our content area is different, so much of
Hmm.
our work is so similar in that it's
Hmm.
working around mindset and
Hmm.
shifting understandings.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
and when we do that work, we can have tremendous impact
Hmm.
quite quickly, actually.
Yes, and sometimes it's measurable, and many times it's not measurable because the impact continues beyond your work. I believe so.
Oh yeah, it's forever.
Yeah, it's forever.